Hey everybody, welcome back. So since my trauma of losing my keys for a few days, I decided I had to have some way to prevent that from happening in the future. So after a little research, I decided to buy a 4-pack of these little tile mate key finder things. And this is what one of them looks like. They're pretty cool, really. Connect on your key ring or whatever you want to connect them to. The battery lasts about a year. You can sound an alarm on this from your phone via Bluetooth, or even press the button on this and make your phone sound an alarm. Seem to work pretty good. I may do a review on them later after I've had a chance to lose a few things and find them again. That'll probably be, by the end of tomorrow. But nonetheless, the next thing I thought was, okay, how long is it going to take Chuck to wreck this? Because I'm pretty hard on stuff. So my next thought after that was, hey, you know what? Let's design and print a TPU skin for it. And you can see it here on the mate itself on my keys, which I hopefully now cannot lose for a long period of time again. Then I had a third thought. Wouldn't this be a great opportunity to make a Fusion 360 tutorial, a beginner's tutorial, and it would be the first one I've really done as a tutorial since Fusion 360 came out with a new interface and the free version of it. So that's what let's do today. Let me take you through the design of this from start to finish. We'll kind of make it a very beginner's type of thing. And this was very simple to make. And yeah, let me switch over to Fusion 360 and let's do this.
Okay, so this is Fusion 360. If you're brand new to the program, this is probably how it's going to look when you first start it up. You won't have all of these folders and all of this stuff here that I have in the data panel, but the panel will probably be open. If the panel isn't open, there's a button here called Hide and Show Data Panel. It'll open it and close it. This is also the free, personal, not for commercial use version of Fusion 360 with the new interface. I'm still not really overjoyed with the new interface, but I am slowly kind of getting used to it. So first thing let's do, and if you're already familiar with the basics of Fusion 360 and you want to just see the tile skin design, you might want to jump forward 8, 9, 10 minutes or so until I'm done with the basics for the people who always ask me about it. So I'm going to close the data panel because I don't design with it open, because I want that space back for my design. So when you open Fusion, you're going to see this. It's basically a blank screen. You got a toolbar, actually a bunch of different toolbars across the top, but Fusion pretty much manages these toolbars for you, so don't worry about them when you're new. These things over here to the right, you know what, later on when you get into more advanced things, you'll be using some of this stuff over here. If you're looking for the parameters, you can come in, or not parameters, but if you're looking for the preferences, you can click on your name or your organization's name in the upper right, click on preferences, and they all appear here. My advice to you is, if you don't know what you want to change and what you need to change it to, is just leave all these alone, at least to start. So I have a part open here, and this is my improved design of Commando Designs coffee mug shell for the low ball insulated cup, and that I drink coffee out of every day. I liked his. It looked great, but it was not comfortable to hold for very long, so I made my own with a smooth, really nicely filleted handle. So the basics of Fusion 360. Let's start with zooming in and out. Roll the mouse wheel in and out. Couldn't be any simpler than that. You also have some controls down here for pan, zoom, rotate, and things like that, but I use the mouse. To move left and right, hold the middle mouse button down, and move left or right, up and down, whatever makes you happy. To rotate, hold the right mouse button down and move it. And that's all there is to it. Now, there is what's called an orbit center. That is the point that things rotate around. And if you right click somewhere, like over here, you can see set orbit center. And now where I click is where my orbit center will go. Now when I rotate, it does one of those. This is really useful if you have multiple parts on the screen that you're going to turn into an assembly. You can make it rotate around the one part you want to work on, and then you can come over here and click the eyeball, and you can hide the ones you don't want to see. If you get it out of whack, like I do regularly, right click someplace and say reset orbit center, and then it will be back over your part. Up here in the upper right, there's this little view cube. This gives you some controls over how you view it. Like I could click on back and it will automatically rotate. There's also little arrows you can click. There's a home button as well. And this is how this prints. So that's why when I click home, it's upside down. Also over here is something which I change every time. I check and change every time I start this program, because it used to change on me a lot. And that's the perspective. And there's orthographic, and orthographic to me, it just makes things look weird. And it makes me think I've done something wrong. And then there is perspective, and which is much better for me. And then the best of all for me is perspective with ortho faces. And sometimes you won't see a difference between perspective and perspective with ortho faces. But if things look weird, go check that. That might be the problem. So that's really all I had this part. Oh, I wanted to show you the history. Down here we have a history row. This is every operation, every sketch, every feature, everything you've done. You can grab the little bar. Whoops, missed it. You can grab the little bar and you can roll back in time, and you can see how it was created. You can go in and you can let me get it back out. You can modify individual things. Like I could come in and say, let's come into the first extrusion. I could come into this, right click and say edit feature, and I can change that extrusion from 18 millimeters to, let's change it to something ridiculous, 36 millimeters, and say OK, and it would change. So that's why I showed you this part, and I'm going to close it for now. I am going to close. Oh, you know what? Let me show you something else here real quick. It calls anything that you haven't saved yet untitled or unsaved. So that's why it says untitled. This is brand new. When you're trying to put dimensions for things in, there's two ways to put dimensions in. One is the old school way of simply typing every dimension in, and if your part is very simple, that works fine to do. Plus, that works fine, but when your part gets more complex, you'll want to probably use a list of parameters for that. Before I show you that, I just want to tell you that this in Fusion 360, everything is built off 2D sketches. A 2D sketch can only be created on the face of an object or a plane. So you can look at the planes by clicking the little eyeball over here to the left. As you go on and get more advanced, you'll use this panel over here at the left, this browser panel. You'll use it more often, but just to start out with, you're probably not going to use it much. But you can click the eyeball next to origin, and you can turn the planes on. These orange flat pieces are planes. You can make your own planes later on if you need to draw someplace where there's nothing. And these little lines, these are poles that you can rotate your object around. Or if you use a rotate command, say you want to create something that revolves all the way around, it'll ask you what you want to revolve on, and that would be these lines. So I'm going to shut it off for now. We're going to create a sketch. That's this button up here. I'm going to click this button, create a sketch. It automatically shows us our origin. Now, since I design for 3D printers mostly these days, I like to use this plane down here. I think of that as my print bed. That way when I'm done, I design it here the way I want it printed. So I'm going to click on that, and let me show you the two different ways to put dimensions in. I am going to create a rectangle, and I could click create and rectangle and a 2-point, a 3-point, or a center rectangle. And when there's 3 dots out at the edge, there's probably some other options you can click on. Pin to toolbar, pin to shortcut, or change keyboard shortcut. So you can make your own toolbars and your own shortcuts if you want, but I'm just going to click center rectangle, or excuse me, 2-point rectangle. I could click it here. I could also hit R on the keyboard. So Here's our rectangle right here. Now I can type in 100 and hit tab to move to the next one, and type in 300 and hit enter to lock it in. There's my rectangle. Now the problem with doing it this way is if I've got 15 more sketches coming along, and when I'm done I realize this dimension is wrong, I am not only going to have to come back to this sketch to fix it, but I'm going to have to fix every other sketch that this dimension is in. That kind of sucks. So a very simple part, do it this way. It doesn't matter. For a more complex part, we want to do it a different way. And let me show you that real quick. I'm going to hit Control Z to get rid of that. I am going to come to Modify right here and change parameters. Now you'll see there's no parameters in it at all. There's a plus button next to user parameters. I'm going to click it. I'm going to call this length, and I'm going to leave millimeters set to millimeters, because unless I'm designing something for an old car or some other old part that used inches, I stay in the metric system these days. And the expression is the size, so I'm going to put in length. I'm going to put in 300 for my length. It's going to be in millimeters. I could put a comment in if I wanted. I don't want to here. I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to add one more, and I'm going to call this one width. And again in millimeters, and we're going to call width 100. And we're going to say OK. And we're going to say OK again. Now when I draw my rectangle, and I'm going to click 2-point rectangle here on the toolbar, now instead of typing a number in, I can type in LE. Length pops up. And if I had a bunch that started with LE, you'd see them all in the list. I'm going to hit tab to move to the other, and I'm going to type in WI, and I'm going to click on width and hit enter. Okay, now you'll see that it shows me the numbers that I put in, but that little FX in front of it means that dimension is derived from another source. In this case, it's derived from my parameter list. Now, if I get all done with my part and I said, holy crap, that 300 was really supposed to be 275, I don't have to come in here and every other place I used that. All I have to do is come up to Modify, change parameters, and change my 300 to what I say, 275. 275, it doesn't matter. This is just an example. And OK. Now it will change it here, and it will change it every other place I used the length parameter. So that's really handy when things get complex. It won't save your butt every time, but it sure can make a lot of things really easy. And that is what I think I wanted to show you here. We have a menu over here. We have a lot of menus up here. Constraints are something that gets a little bit more complex. I'm not going to go into that today. But yeah, I think that's what I mainly wanted to show you, the real beginnings of stuff. I'm going to now close this one, and I don't want to save it. Okay, so if you just now arrived and just wanted to see the design of the TileMate case, you have popped in at the right time. We have gotten most of the basics out of the way, and we are going to go ahead with this design. So I'm going to click my cube home over here to get back to my original. Oh, and I also just wanted to show you modify and change parameters. I have all the parameters in here, but note that my parameters for width, height do not include the wall thickness. Width, height, and thickness are the actual dimension of the part. That's a mistake on my part, but we're going to fix it in here in kind of a fun way. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to click create a sketch. I'm going to click the plane I want to create my first sketch on. I am going to create a center rectangle, and I'm using center rectangle for a reason I'll tell you later. I'm going to move my pointer down till it locks into the center, and I'm going to drag it out, and I am going to type in thickness, and I'm going to hit tab, and I'm going to type in width. And then just the W just brings me up all the W's, and I click on width, and I'm going to hit enter. Now there is my 2D sketch, but as I said, I didn't allow for wall thickness in here. So what I'm going to do is, instead of going back in and changing that parameter, which I could pretty easily, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to change these. So I'm going to say width, because we can put mathematical formulas in here, and it might be fun to do width plus wall thickness times, and you have to use the asterisk for times. You can't use the X sign, and 2. And you notice how it was red when I was typing? It's red when it's wrong, and when it's correct, when it's a functional formula, it turns back to black. And now we have that there, and now we want to come to the other one, and we want to do the same thing here. Thickness plus wall thickness times 2. Oops. It doesn't care about the spaces. I put the spaces in because I like to, but you don't have to. So there's our 2D sketch, which is enough to allow for the 1 millimeter of wall thickness. Now, I could have gone in and put outside and inside dimensions and all that, but you know what? This way works fine, and I goofed up, but this is how I'm fixing it. So we now have a 2D sketch. We need to get this 2D sketch into 3D space, don't we? So to do that, we could use press pull or extrude. There is a difference between the two. I've read about it and I've used them in different locations. Fortunately for me, the program is smarter than I am, and if I pick the wrong one, it'll fix it for me. So back on solid over here, I am going to say create, and I'm going to create an extrusion. I could also hit E on the keyboard. I could also use this up here for press pull, and it would make it right for me. So extrude, it normally asks you what you want to extrude, but I've only got one thing on the screen. So I'm going to extrude this up. I could drag it. I could drag it with the arrow up the amount I want, or I could type the number in here, but I have a parameter, and the parameter is height. And I have to use height, and I'm going to say plus wall thickness. And enter. Okay, so here is my basic shape. Now I need to make it hollow, right? Because I'm going to put something inside of it, and that doesn't work with a solid block. So there's a couple different ways I could make it hollow. I could draw a sketch on this face, and I could draw a rectangle, the original parameters, which would leave me 1 millimeter all the way around, and then I could extrude it down all but 1 millimeter from the surface, again height, and that would do it. But there's a cool little tool in here called shell. So let's use it. Let's go to modify it and shell, and we're going to click. First thing it says is the face or body you want to shell. I want to shell the top, right? And it asks me how much, and I am going to call it wall thickness because I want to shell it. It's asking me how much thickness I want left. So I want to select wall thickness. I could type in 1 millimeter, but I want to use my parameter. And okay, now there it is. There is my basic hollow shape that I'm going to shove the tile mate down into. But we got to put some holes in it, don't we? So we now have a surface we can draw on. So I'm going to hit home again just to make sure that the side I'm on, and right now both sides are the same, so it doesn't matter, but I am going to draw on this side. So I am going to click create a sketch again. I am going to click on this face because that's now where I want my sketch. And you see it does put a grid up. It's very light. It's not dark enough to bother me, but it's also not dark enough for me to really be of a lot of use to me. And you can change the darkness of it pretty easy. I don't really use it, so I don't care. So I'm now drawing on this surface. I want to draw a hole, so a circle. So I can come up to circle, and 2-point circle or center diameter circle, it doesn't matter. Or I could click on the button, or I could hit C on the keyboard. But we're going to draw a circle. So click on the button, and this circle wants to be keyring hole, and that's the size I want it to be. Hit enter. Now you'll notice one thing is that circle is light colored, and that light colored means it can be moved. I hate stuff that can be moved. I've done it before, it'll work, but I like my stuff locked down. I want it dimensioned. So I am going to hit D for dimension. You'll also see there is a dimension tool right here when you're in sketch mode, or you can just hit D for dimension. And I'm going to hit escape a couple times because I had that highlighted. So dimension again. Anytime a tool seems to be behaving in a way you think it shouldn't, hit escape 2 or 3 times and then try it again. So I want to dimension from this bottom edge to my circle. I'm going to drag it out here. I drag it out to where I can see it. You can leave it in the center if you want it. I drag them out to where I can see them. And then click. And in there, I could type a dimension in if I knew what it was, but I have a parameter here. And this is height to keyring hole. And enter. And my dimension tool, you'll notice it's still on if you look at my mouse pointer. So I am going to click this edge now and go back to my circle. And you can click pretty much anywhere on the circle. I have a tendency to go to the center. And again, I'm going to drag it up to where I can see it. Click. And now I am going to type in W, and I'm going to pick width to keyring hole and hit enter. All right. Now you'll notice my hole, hit escape to get rid of my my dimension tool. You'll notice my hole is now black. I can click and drag that tool to my heart's content, but I can't move it anymore without changing the dimensions. You'll notice I can always come in and change where these dimensions are. Nothing's set in stone. If I get two dimensions that are kind of overlapping, I can move them around till I get them where I like them. So what next? This hole needs to go all the way through. So we are going to once again go to solid, and we are going to click on press pull, hit E to extrude, hit Q to press pull, whatever makes you happy. It wants to know what I want to press pull. I want to press pull this circle. Notice it changed it to extrude. Now, if this was a tower, I wanted to pull it out, I could come this way and make a solid object, but I don't. I want to cut. So I'm going to drag my arrow this way. Now, I know a lot of people, or some people anyway, who just drag these things way out into space like that. And you know what? For something like this, it would be fine. I consider it to be somewhat sloppy. I don't like doing it. So what I'm going to do is, instead of making my cut a distance and giving it a dimension in that distance, I'm going to change distance to to object, and this will make it cut to a solid object. So to object, it wants to know what that object is. That object is the outer face of this side of our piece. And hit OK, and there we go. Now no matter how much I change these dimensions, this cut will always go from this face to the opposite face and no further, because who knows, this could be this could be something with 2 or 3 components, and if you change the other components, you don't want the hole from this one accidentally going into the hole from something else. It's just a good design habit to get into, in my opinion. Lecture over. So we need the hole for the sound thing, and that's on the other side, right? That is on the other side, right? So we're going to come around to this side. We're going to do the same thing. Click on Create Sketch, and we're going to click on, we're going to draw on this face this time, and we're going to draw a hole again. So I'm going to click hole, draw a hole. I could make it as big or small as I want because I'm going to put in a dimension. This is sound hole, and click on it, hit enter, and notice it can be drug around again, so I need to dimension it. Click on the dimension box or hit D for dimension, and I'm going to dimension again from this bottom edge to the center of my circle. Drag it out here, and this is height to sound hole right there, and hit enter. And my dimension tool is still live, so I'm going to come to this edge and to the center of my circle and come up here, and this is width to sound hole, and enter. Now I need to cut this through, but just this surface, so I am going to hit escape to get rid of my dimension tool. And I'm going to come back to solid and click push pull. I want to push pull this circle. I want it to be a cut, not an addition. And I am going to once again change my distance to object. And this object is now going to be the inner wall surface. And now no matter how thick I make the inner wall, the hole will always go that far and no further. And OK. And there we have it. There is our keyring hole all the way through. And there is our hole for to let the sound out of the little speaker. All right, so what else do we need? Well, we want to fillet this, and that's where a little bit of fun comes in. Because if you're not careful, you can booger up because you don't realize exactly what fillets do. And I did. I mean, I've done it multiple times. And I've actually printed stuff and went, uh-oh, and went back and looked at my part and thought, oh yeah, that should have been obvious. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes you can't see the forest for the trees. So we're going to come into modify and to fill it, or we could hit F on the keyboard. I'm going to start with these two edges here. I'm going to hit that one and that one. And if you ever accidentally hit the wrong one, you can always come back and be real careful. And sometimes it helps to zoom in a lot and click on the one that was an accident and it will go away. If you have 50 different edges selected or more, and I have, and you accidentally click wrong and they all become unselected, it's really annoying. Okay, I measured this curvature on the part and it matched up to a 10 millimeter circle, so I want half of that, and that's 5 millimeters. I have a parameter in for it called fillet. So let's click it and let's say okay, and there is my fillet. So here's an interesting thing down here. I want to fill at the bottom too. So let's hit F for fillet again. Let's hit this. Let's hit this. And let's put in F for fillet and hit OK. Well, look what it did. It cut through our material. It's going to leave me holes at the bottom, and then this is going to be super thin right here because it's a slow cut. So you know what? Let's figure out why that happened. We obviously need to make that thicker in there, and we can use the same tool to do it. So let's do Control Z. Let's get rid of the top one too. So first thing let's do, let's hit F for fillet again, and let's fillet these inner ones. And you're probably going to ask me why we can't do these at the same time, because you can't fillet in two directions at once. I can't fillet in upwards on the inner one and downwards on the bottom one. I don't think anyway. Maybe there's a way to do it. I sure haven't figured it out, and it really isn't necessary. So we're going to do these two, and the dimension once again is going to be fillet. And now you notice that I now have this thickness, this curvature on the inside, which will let me put my curvature on the outside without cutting through that. Can we see that better here? Not really. It's just too narrow. Trust me, it's there. So now we're going to hit F for fillet again, or we could go up here to the toolbar and click fillet, or we can go modify and select fillet. And now we're going to do all four of the outside ones. We're going to go here, 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 and where's the last one? There it is right there. You think it's bad when there's 4? Wait till there's 100. Okay, and again, let me finish this. I'm going to say F for my dimension, for my parameter called fillet. That'll get me that 5 millimeters. Let's say OK to it. And there's all kinds of different things you can change in here in the fillet. There's things like tangent chain, which I don't even know what it is. I always just leave them alone if they work right. So this is our finished part. You'll notice now we don't have a hole here. Oh, wait a minute. We have to put the pusher hole in, don't we? Almost forgot my pusher hole. So once again, we're going to come up to the upper left and click on Create Sketch. We're going to click our bottom surface. I am going to click Circle, or hit C for Center Diameter Circle, and we're going to lock it into that center point. And now we're going to come out, and we're going to put in P and pusher hole, and enter. Now you notice it's black. I don't have to put any other dimensions in than that because it's locked into the center. I'm going to hit E to extrude, or Q to push pull, and I'm going to do the same thing. Now I could drag it up to there, but again, sloppy, and I'm guilty of it at times. But I'm going to change my distance once more to object, and the object is going to be that bottom inner surface. And okay, and there's my pusher hole to let me push things out. So only really one thing left to do, I think. It's pretty much the finished product at this point. You could do fancy things like put your name on it, or write tile on it, or whatever, put your phone number on it, whatever would make you happy. You can put lettering on it. Lettering prints fairly well in the upright position on 3D printers. This really needs to print in the upright position, or you're going to wind up with a bunch of support on the inside. So we want to save this. So you want to come up and click the little floppy disk icon. Why are we still using floppy disk icons? Anyway, click on the floppy disk icon, give it a name, say OK. It'll be called Untitled up here. I already have a name for this one. And then the name will change here from Untitled or Unwhatever to the name you gave it. And it increments each time you make a change and save, it increments it with a V number, V1, V2, V3, which is kind of nice. So our slicer needs an STL. So we're going to put a pointer right here at the top of our little browser on the top thing of it. What would you call that? The top heading. We're going to right click it. We're going to left click Save as STL. Our little Save as STL window opens. I normally don't change anything in here. I just click OK. If you change something and you like it, it makes it better, let me know, but I've never really messed with it. Just say OK. It'll ask you where you want to save it and give it a name, and I got a bunch of in here. Let's I've probably done this 5-6 different times. So let's call this Tile New. Oops, can't spell. Tile New STL and say save. As long as you don't get an error message, you should be able to minimize Fusion and go hunt for it. Now it's going to have a Cura icon on it because Cura is set as default on my computer for STL files. Here it is down here, Tile New. Let's open it in Cura. And you know what? Cura gave me some trouble printing this, and I think I wound up going to Idea Maker to finally print it. I had updated the Cura 4.5. Maybe that had something to do with it, but it did not want to print nicely between the two separate holes on it, which is a problem I've never really had in Cura before. Flat holes, yes, but across the side in between it, not really. But anyway, my Cura profile isn't anything for TPU, is not anything remarkable. I have slowed I am using the temperature the manufacturer recommends, which if I remember right is 235. Oh, you know what? That's not the right profile. Anyway, I think I use like 235 for the temperature. I slow the speed down to 25 and no print cooling, things like that. And I'm using no support at all for this, but I am putting about a 10-line brim around it to try and give it some support. I have printed some of them without the brim, and they were okay, but I also knocked one or two of them over. So the 10-line brim seemed to cure that. Let's print it and see what it looks like. Be right back.
Okay, had to make a run out to my garage where the Ender 3 with the TPU in it is now located. This is the blue Saints Foxmark TPU, and the Ender 3 that has the McEwen Flexi Plus feeder on it, and we are about 15 minutes into a 45-minute print. This is going to be the TileMate little cover, and I'm not going to bore you watching the whole print. We'll be back when this is done. Okay, so here we are back. As I mentioned in that little bit before this, I printed these on a mostly stock Ender 3. It's been flashed with stock Marlin and has a mirror bed and hairspray, and has a McEwen Flexi Plus 3D McEwen 3D Flexi Plus extruder. Sorry about that. And but as long as your standard Ender 3 extruder is functioning correctly, which it probably isn't, because the one it comes with is trash. But if you have a decent extruder on it, you shouldn't have any problems printing TPU. The TPU I'm using is extraordinarily flexible. But anyway, here is the finished product. And as you can see, it is crazy stupid flexible. You can do just about anything with it. And it's really great stuff. I love it. And here is a tile. Let's I have it in right. There's our sound hole back there. There's our keyring hole. Let's shove it in. And there we go. Keyring hole, sound hole lines up nicely. And you can still press the button from the back. And probably give it a little bit of protection. I mean, nothing can protect things totally from me. I'm I'm pretty destructive sometimes, and it fits in nice enough that it is kind of tough to get out unless you have, here's a little with a little thing where it's got a flat Allen on it, so it's not like I'm shoving anything pointed into it. You gotta give it a pretty good push to get that up out of there. Look, it stole my bit. It fits in there really good. So anyway, there you have it. TPU tile case. I will put that little case, I'll put the STL for that little case and the Fusion 3D file. I'll put it up on Thingiverse, and I'll put a link to it below. And I'll put a link, I'll put an Amazon link to the tiles below, and of course it'll be an affiliate link, but I'm sure you can find it if you want it, if you don't like affiliate links. And hope you enjoyed this video. I hope I helped you out a little bit. If I did, if I've even entertained you, I think it just told me it's no longer in Bluetooth mode. If I've entertained you, please like and subscribe and hit notifications, and I will catch you guys the next time. Bye for now.